Richins is the Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer for Idaho Power. Prior to being named in his current roles, Adam served in positions with Idaho Power, including Vice President of Customer Operations and Business Development, General Manager of Customer Operations, Engineering and Construction, and Senior Counsel. That's quite a mouthful there, Adam. Welcome, Adam.
You guys hear me? All right. First of all, good morning. That was pretty good. Should we try it again? One more time. Good morning. Oh, I'm really excited to be here. We have so much to cover in 45 minutes, Kathy. I promised to Kathy that we get it done, so we're going to see about this. So I'm actually just going to jump right into it. And by the way, some of the questions that were just asked, hopefully I'll get to them. And then, of course, we'll have a question and answer session afterwards. So I'm going to start with this slide right here. It has been a crazy time, not just for the energy world, but I think for all businesses. It doesn't matter if you're in, healthcare, real estate, the government. The last 4 or 5 years have been challenging, I think, to say the least. So I'm sure there are some people that are sitting there kind of where the arrow is pointing, things have been fine, no problems. But for a lot of us, we've been these folks. A little bit upside down, not sure if we're moving forward, backwards. And certainly the energy space has felt some of that stress. It's not a surprise, this just came out recently, 44% of all workers are stressed a lot at work. And I think we've seen that increase over the years with a lot of the challenges that we're facing. So let's talk about the energy space specifically and some of the operational challenges that Idaho Power has faced. First of all, I'm not sure a lot of folks know this, but we are at least as far as I know, the fastest growing utility in the United States right now. 5.5% growth each year for the next 5 years. So certainly residential growth has been a part of that. People want to live in Idaho. I'm an Idaho native, great place to live. But really where we're seeing a lot of that growth is on the manufacturing side. So this is a picture of Micron's new $15 billion facility. And it's not public how much energy these types of facilities use, but I'm just going to tell you it's a lot. It's a lot, and that's a part of what we're responding to. Now, you heard from the last panel, certainly growth is occurring, but what we haven't seen is any growth in the transmission system in the last 50 years, basically. I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but very little transmission has been built. So we're growing, but we're having a hard time figuring out how we move clean energy around where we need it, when we need it in real time because of lack of transmission. Let's talk about Mother Nature. I'm not sure a lot of folks know this, but 2021 and 22 were the hottest back-to-back years in the history of our service territory. So when you see that heat, obviously that puts stress on the electric grid. We have to provide more energy. It can be a little bit challenging for those of us that operate our facilities. At the same time, 2021 and 2022 were the driest years in the history of our service territory. The driest. So if you're a hydro facility, we have 17 hydro plants, that can put a little stress on operating the system as well. Just to give you an idea, 2021, we generated 5.4 million megawatt hours using our hydro facilities. 2022 was 5.3, 2023 was 6.5. The average is 7.1. So we were well below average. In fact, this is the first year in 5 years that we're going to be at average in terms of producing from our hydro facilities. Oh God, this one just gives me nightmares looking at it. Supply chain. The energy space has definitely been impacted by this. Everybody has been, but the thing about our world is we build big things. Big things take a while to build, months, and what has used to be months has now turned into years. And we're going to get into that just as an example. Transformers that maybe used to take 9 months are now taking 3 years from the time we make the order for it to be delivered to us. So significant supply chain issues. Sorry, missed that right there. Let's talk about commodity pricing. The Ukraine event did not help with natural gas prices. So we typically pay $2 to $2.50 for natural gas. In 2022, 2023, after the Ukraine event, we were paying as much as $30. And what happened is we had to spend a lot of money for that natural gas when we were in a drought. And unfortunately, that ended up impacting customer rates. So we had one of the biggest rate increases we've ever had to have a couple years ago, and it was large part tied to these commodity pricings. Okay, meanwhile, you guys know what's happening with coal. We're growing, but coal is shrinking. This is a look at our Boardman plant, which was demolished in 2020. We also got out of our interest in coal at the Boise plant, Unit 1. We are right now converting 2 of our Bridger plants to gas. So coal is definitely in the past, but the problem is it had some really good generation capacity, dispatchable capacity that is not there anymore. Let's talk about our hydro fleet. It's clean, it's dispatchable, it's extremely affordable. I heard some folks talking about our rates. That's one of the reasons our rates are so low. One of the things about hydro is it is getting older, so we're having to do a lot of refurbishments, a lot of maintenance work on these facilities as we're growing too. So not a big deal, but something that's continuing as well. And did you know, just to kind of cap this all off, last summer someone tried to take out our grid physically. So there was a shooter at 2 of our facilities, 2 of our dams, shot up a decent amount of equipment. Luckily, we had redundancy. Luckily, we had inventory. But this is yet just one more stress that exists. You can Google it. It wasn't well known, but it is a public matter that occurred, shot up our Hells Canyon facility and our Brownlee facility in kind of the Hells Canyon area. So lots of stresses. Okay, but we're going to take a second here and do an exercise I've been doing here with audiences just recently. So you got to help me out here. Got to engage with me. How many parents are in the room? Oh my gosh, a lot of parents. They're going to end up all right, right? These kids? Maybe. Okay, we'll find out. I have a 15 and 16. I have 2 teenagers, so we're right in the thick of it. How about people that manage employees? So pretty much between those 2 things, we have most folks. So I'm going to ask you a question. I hope someone in the audience will be brave enough to answer it. You can give your daughter, son, or your employee 3 attributes, 3 characteristics. Grit, how hard they work. Emotional intelligence, how well they connect with others. And then IQ, how smart they are. So you can give your son, daughter, your employee any of these attributes. But here's the trick. If you give someone more, so let's say you say, I really want my son or daughter to be really smart. So you add 3 to IQ, you have to reduce that same amount somewhere else. You only have 18 points to work with. So who's brave enough to say what they would do in this situation with their kids? Somebody, please help me. Yes, Commissioner, thank you so much. Okay, so what would you do? So you'd move grit up how much? At least a couple. And what would you replace with grit? EQ or IQ? You have to move one of those 2 back. You'd move IQ down. So hard work is very important in this world, right? And so I like it. Anybody want to disagree with it? One more person, come on. Either, I don't know. Okay, we'll go back in the back. So the comment was made, I'd put more on emotional intelligence. You can always hire smart people. Very true. I mean, connecting with others is very, very important. So there's a couple examples. So when I think about this question, by the way, I ask this at dinner parties. It's kind of a fun question. Lots of debate, not as much in this room because it's public, but take it back home and debate it. I think most people think about it in the context of professional success. How do I make sure my son, daughter, or my employee are professionally successful? How do you hire the right people? But I have to ask the question, is professional success, does it necessarily equate to happiness? Success in life. So let's look at this guy. Let's say you said, I want, the person to be really, really smart, my son. And I'm going to take away EQ. This guy may do very well at work, very smart guy, but is this the type of guy you want to hang out with? Looks a little smug, maybe doesn't read the room right, maybe a little overconfident. I'm not sure what I think about Mr. IQ. How about Miss Grit? Hard work, right? But if you're working really hard, there is a chance you're going to miss out on some things at life. If all you do is work, maybe you don't see your friends, maybe you don't see your family, maybe you don't have hobbies. So there is kind of a drawback to being the hard worker. I'm a hard worker, so I like it, but there's some truth to this, right? How about Mr. EQ? I mean, he's really fun to hang out with, but I'm not sure you want this guy doing your taxes, right? Or like having a very serious conversation. So to us, and you're going to see how this plays into the energy space, I swear, it all comes back to balance. And so for me, I've actually thought about this question a lot, and I've ended up with 666. Like, I want a balanced son or daughter for a variety of different reasons. Okay, so how does this apply to energy? You're like, what is this guy talking about? Same question, 3 attributes for the energy that you get. So a lot of you are Idaho Power customers. What do you want that service to be? Do you want it to be clean? So let's just say low CO2 emitting resource. Affordable, at the end of the day, you get a cheaper bill. Or reliable, less outages. Same thing applies. So let's say you say, I run a business and we cannot have outages. Reliability is very important. Well, then you have to move 2 others back, and then we're going to talk about this. But I'm going to ask this audience, is there a brave soul that will answer this? What do you want? What do you want your energy resource to be? Yes, in the back. Affordable. Right. So the answer was, I want it to be affordable, because if I can't afford it, that's the biggest problem you might have. Clean doesn't matter. Reliable doesn't matter. I got to be able to pay my bill every month. Okay. So how about in the back? Out of affordable. So you're willing to pay more for a clean energy resource. I like it. So different views, but that's exactly why we're here today. One more. I think a lot. So good question. Yep. Yep. It's a great point. So the comment is, are you talking about the bill today or maybe the consequences later? So a lot of folks that are, really thinking about climate change may say there are consequences later that are going to be more expensive to our society. So you can't just look at your bill today. So it's a fair comment. I'm talking about today, to be honest, like people that have to pay their bills every single day right now. What do you care about? Now, let's talk about that a little bit more. There will be a question and answer session for sure. So again, what is the meaning of success when it comes to this question? So I'm here to tell you, if we wanted to spend a lot of money, I think Idaho Power will affordably, using wind, solar, storage, hopefully get to around 80% clean by 2030. You could probably get to 100% by 2035 if you spent a lot of money for that last 20%. And we'll talk about why that is. And if you did that, you have to think about the people that pay their bills every month and what that means for them. How about reliability? Besides our hydro facilities, the fact of the matter is our coal facilities are the most reliable, dispatchable resources we have. It's just true. You've heard we're moving away from coal, but it is a fact. But you have to look at the drawbacks related to that. If you had all coal on your system, what is that going to do to the environment, to climate change, to some of those types of things? And then lastly, we could invest very little money into our system, and you'd have a lot of outages. You'd have a cheaper bill, but you would have a lot of outages. Is that what you want? So in a world like this, you'd have our customers today average 1 outage per customer per year. If we don't invest in our system, that's going to increase a ton. So again, it gets back to balance. So we went out and we asked Idaho Power customers kind of this question. We were curious about this balance. What do you want for your service? And we asked them, do you want us to be 100% clean by 2045? This was across our service territory, from Blackfoot, Pocatello, all the way to Payette. What percentage of our customers do you think said, we want you to be 100% clean by 2045? Any thoughts? Someone throw out a number. 80. Good guess. 70. I like it. Another good guess. Thank you, brave people. I love it. Here was the answer. 89.6%. It's pretty amazing. I'm here to tell you, I don't think 90% of people agree to anything these days, let alone this question. I mean, it's pretty fascinating. In Idaho, this is Idaho and of course a little bit of Oregon, Eastern Oregon. But then we did ask this next question because we were curious about the balance. How much would you be willing to pay more for this right now? If you had a 5% increase on your bill, is your answer still yes? What do you guys think it went to? For 5%, not a lot. 50, 60. Massive decrease. Then we asked the question about 10%. Do you guys see the trend? So this is what we are faced with. The challenge Idaho Power is faced with is, yes, go clean if you can do it affordably. And a lot of our, especially our larger customers would say, and reliably too. So that's the challenge. So can we do this? Can we achieve this challenge, meet this goal? Okay, so let's look at where we're at right now. This is our 2023 energy mix and kind of compare it to the rest of the nation. I mentioned it wasn't the best hydro year last year or for the last 3 years. So you can see we're actually a little bit lower in hydro last year than we normally are, 36.8%. But you compare that to the rest of the nation, it's pretty good, 6% with the rest of the nation. When you talk about renewables, 15% for the rest of the nation, we're around 20%. I do have to say that we sell our renewable energy credits for the benefits of our customers, so we don't get those renewable attributes. But when you look at just where energy went, about 20% wind, solar, geothermal versus 15% the rest of the nation. Let's look at coal, 20% the rest of the nation, Idaho Power 13%. And we just converted 2 of our biggest units to gas, or we are doing that right now. So you're going to see that number decrease quite a bit. And then natural gas, pretty significant difference there. So we are, and it was mentioned on the panel, pretty clean right now. We're starting from a good place, in my opinion. But there are some challenges. And so what is the number one challenge to getting to that 100% clean energy future? It's a pretty simple one. Weather, Mother Nature. You guys remember the heat dome? June 30th, 2021? Man, it was hot across the United States, but really in the Pacific Northwest. These numbers show how much more above average it was in these locations. It got to 115 in Portland in June. So it's days like these that the grid really gets stressed. And these folks in our control room, we call them white knuckle days. They're pretty stressful. So why is that? So I think a lot of this group knows this, but I don't know for sure. You guys know that the energy business is a real-time business. These lights right now, they're being energized by electricity that is being produced right now, instantaneous. Electricity travels at 186,000 miles per second, or at least close to that. So we are producing in our hydro facilities the electricity that is lighting this up right now. So in our control room, it's about the size of this room, maybe a little bit smaller. We have operators that sit there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making sure that supply and demand are exactly the same at every second of every day. Because if they're not, the system collapses. That's where you see cascading outages, those types of things. It's when supply and demand gets out of whack. So let's dive even deeper into what they're doing. So load is just a fancy word on the y-axis for customer demand, what our customers need at any given moment. You can see time on the bottom. What the blue line is showing is a normal summer day, what happens throughout that day. And you can see that as people wake up 6 in the morning, they turn on their lights, air conditioning goes, maybe they have some appliances, more energy is needed, more power is needed at that moment, and it goes up over the day. So what we do to meet that is we maybe put more water through our turbines, increase the amount of generation we have to meet that need. You can see it peaks right around 6, 7 o'clock, and that's because it gets really, really hot. This is just a typical summer day. So now using the other axis, let's look at wind and solar. I'm here to tell you from Idaho Power's perspective, wind and solar, great resources, inexpensive now for a variety of different reasons. The one problem with these resources is they may not be there when you need it. So let's take a look at wind. We have 700 megawatts of wind on our system, again, using the right axis. On this summer day, and this is not uncommon, we could have picked any summer day, It got as high as 150 out of the 700. And you can see during the peak, look where wind is at. It's almost at zero. Again, this is very, very common during a summer day. So wind's great, but is it going to be there at the peak time when you have to find energy to serve your customers? Let's talk about solar. Again, this is a little bit old. This chart's maybe a couple years old. We have more solar on our system now, but you can see what happens with solar. The sun comes up, it's in the red, and of course, solar starts producing. But guess what happens every day? 365 days a year, in fact. Sun goes down, and you can see when it goes down, we still have a pretty significant need to meet our customers' demands. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, it's still really warm, but the sun is down. So what do we do right now? Right now, we fire up our coal plants, we fire up our natural gas plants to meet that demand, that peak need. So what are we going to do in the future? You heard the last panel talk about lithium-ion batteries. This is one of our projects. You can see how big it is. Those are trucks up there. And all this is rows and rows and rows of lithium-ion batteries. Same type of batteries you have in your phone. What we do is the sun comes up in the morning, we charge these batteries. It takes about 4 hours. Then when the sun goes down and we have that net peak where we still need a lot of energy, we release it during that 4-hour period. And this is pretty darn effective in the summer. We pretty much do this every day. We charge it either at night if the wind is blowing or in the morning with solar, and then we release it for 4 hours. The duration of these batteries is 4 hours to hit that net peak. Sounds pretty good, except for one problem. Days like these, weeks like these, where you don't have a lot of solar, we see these in Idaho, you don't have a lot of wind, and these batteries' duration is 4 hours. So what do you do after you've released all that energy and you have a day like this? So we have a couple Idaho Power folks here. One is our lead planner, Jared. He provided me with this slide. This just shows, so effective load carrying capacity, maybe you've heard that term. It's a fancy term for like, is the resource going to produce energy when we need it at the peak? And you can see for batteries in the summer, it does a pretty good job. The majority of the time, it's going to be able to meet the peak need that we have during that 4 hours. You can see what happens, though, during the winter. When you don't have solar, you don't have inputs into the batteries are only 4 hours. We have two peaks that are way longer than 4 hours. In the winter, we have the morning peak, the evening peak. Suddenly, the effectiveness of these batteries goes down quite a bit. You can see what happens to wind and solar, too. Maybe not hitting the peak when we need it to. So that's one of the reasons we need a lot more transmission. Idaho Power has been a leader in trying to build and develop transmission, but it is not easy. We're going to dive into this just a little bit. How much time do we have? Sorry, that was a joke, bad joke. Okay, so let's look at the map of the United States over there. You saw a map earlier. The purple is where we have really good wind generation. So Wyoming, not a surprise, the wind blows there, eastern Idaho. You see the top map, the yellow is where we have really good solar, so desert Southwest. And of course, we have really good hydro in the Pacific Northwest. So what we are trying to do is build transmission lines to hit each of those areas. Boardman-Hemingway goes from, Idaho up to Oregon. It'll tap into that really low-cost, dispatchable, clean hydro resource in the Northwest. Gateway West connects us to wind, will allow us to bring wind into our service territory. And it is blowing a lot in Wyoming. And then, of course, we have the Southwest Intertie project going south. This is called the Intermountain Intertie. Each of these projects is over $1 billion. We have partners. We're working with those partners. But let's talk a little more about this. By the way, I call this the flux capacitor. Where's Melissa? I told you I'd get a few laughs. Okay. It kind of shows the age, too, but that's okay. Okay, so let's talk about another reason why transmission is effective. Let's hope this video works. So this is a chart of the United States. All those colors you're seeing are locational marginal prices. Again, it's a fancy term for what is the price of energy at that location, taking into account transmission, where the generation resource is, some of those types of things. So this last winter on January 12, 13, and 14, do you guys remember it got really cold in the Pacific Northwest? And a lot of the grid kind of got strained. The colors are the prices. So you can see blue is low cost energy. When you start getting to bright red, $1,000 a megawatt hour, it is very expensive. So a company like Idaho Power can incur millions of dollars a day when you have $1,000 pricing. So let's look what happened on January 12th, 13th, 14th. Come on, work, all right. So it's doing every 15 minutes, and you're gonna see how prices start to change based on where the demand is. The demand's in the Pacific Northwest because that's where it's really, really cold. So you can see we're starting to get into the 12th, now into the 13th. Prices are starting to rise. You see prices really rising in the Pacific Northwest. What do you guys notice about the desert Southwest? Not a lot of red down there, huh? We primarily trade in the Mid-Sea and the Pacific Northwest. That's where 90% of our trading occurs. That's where our transmission is. Jared, our transmission planner, knows we would have loved to be able to go down south during that 3-day period. That's what the Southwest Intertie project would have allowed us to do, is tap into that low-cost energy and serve our customers with that instead of the red energy.
Jerome slaps the basketball, looking, peering, finds guy.
I catch it and I...
A little bit more. To get it done, there's the 3 Ps: planning, permitting, paying. I'm here to tell you, Idaho Power has done okay with the planning. We have lots of transmission projects planned. You hear a lot about, we need to increase planning. I'm not saying we don't. Idaho Power has planned a lot of projects. On the paying side, for the reasons I just showed, these lines are so beneficial. They pay for themselves over 50 years for our customers' benefit. All our modeling shows that it is beneficial to have these lines installed versus not. And of course, if we want to get to a clean energy future, you just have to have them. There's no argument there. The problem has been permitting. I heard someone mention B2H. Let me dive into this quickly. We started B2H 2006, 2007. I'm going to go with 2006. That's 2006. That's not 2016. We started it in 2006. The construction of these projects, not too bad. 2.5 years, maybe 3 years at the most. The cost is up there, but again, we have partners and the benefits are significant. We have spent over $200 million permitting this transmission line. We're 18 years into it and we have not broken ground. That is a long, long time to be permitting something. It doesn't emit anything. It's a transmission line. So what is that? Well, it's studies, it's research, it's working with the community, it's looking at a variety of different routes, it's lawsuits, it's more lawsuits, and here we are reopening a permit here in the last couple months. We were hoping to break ground in April. It's not going to happen because some cultural issues in another project. They think, well, it could happen at Idaho Power's project too, so we're going to reopen a permit and look at those issues. I just want to put a little finer point on this. This is my son, Sam, in 2007. It's okay, he was not a cute baby, I know it. He was really scrawny. I know, but it's true. Look at Sam now, 2024. He's a man. He's 6'2", 175 pounds. When B2H gets done, you're going to find Sam in this bar. 21 years later, that's the duration that we're looking at. We will not get to our clean energy goals if we're spending 21 years permitting these projects. It's just the reality of the situation we're in. Okay, affordability. How much time do I have? I got to start cruising, I know. Okay, affordability. Obviously, it's really important we keep bills down. I always think of the cute grandma. By the way, do not put cute grandma into the internet. Have you guys ever tried it? It's not a good result. These are the things that come up. Babies dressed like grandmas. Toddlers dressed like grandmas. What do you guys think comes next? It's the internet. Who are you going to dress up next like a grandma? Dogs and cats. The creepiest one, I think, is the one that's got like that suit on. Don't you guys think? Here's the good news. I've been giving a lot of bad news. Good news about technology. Solar has gone down 85% since 2010 in a 10-year period. Significant declines. Same with wind. This is the biggest one. No experts thought between 2010 and 2020 storage was going to go down 85%. Maybe 1% of experts. Very few people thought that. And that's why you're seeing more of this on our system, because it's gotten more inexpensive. Supply chain, I'm going to go through real quickly. Just want to give you an idea of what it was before COVID and what it is now on some of these facilities. Large transformers are now 3 years. Breakers, you can see what's happened there. Renewable projects went from, a couple years. I mean, I'm not going to talk about B2H, 21 years, but some of these other projects went from a couple years to 4 or 5 years. So lead times have gotten increased significantly. Here's some more good news. This is from our IRP, and it shows what's happening to CO2 emissions over time. What our modeling basically shows us right now is that we'll get, again, around 2030, 2032, 2033, hopefully get to around that 80% mark. And then you can see our models kind of stop, because there's not a way for us to get to that 100% clean energy future without different technologies to help us do that. So let's talk just quickly about what those technologies are that can help us with the last 15%. Here's Idaho Power employees. They're thinking about this. How do we get this done? I see INL here. Let's talk about one of the main technologies, small modular nuclear reactors. It's a clean technology. What is it? So it's a little bit different than large conventional traditional nuclear, which is, 1,000, 2,000 megawatt facilities, takes up many, many acres. These things are just smaller. They're 300 megawatts or less. You can put them on anywhere from 5 to 15 acres, depending on the situation. They're modular, so instead of building them on site like you do traditional nuclear, a bunch of cost overruns, you build a lot of the components of small modular nuclear reactors in a facility, in a factory. Their ramp rate is a lot better than old nuclear. They're a lot more safe, which means you kind of walk away, they call them passively safe. Meltdowns do not happen with these advanced nuclear systems. For a variety of reasons, they have coolants like liquid metal, think Terminator 2, helium, all these things. So let's ask the question to the group. Do small modular nuclear reactors overcome these challenges that we've talked about? What about weather? Is weather a problem with SMRs? No. I mean, they don't depend on the weather. They have fuel. So a little check mark there. How about affordability? What do you guys think? I'm going to give this a question mark. Hope INL is okay with that. No, I'm kidding. We would like these to be in the $50 to $60 a megawatt hour, these units. Right now, most folks believe they're $100 to $110. So we need some cost decreases, probably in the 60 to 70% range. But guess what I just showed you happened to storage? It's 85% over a decade. Supply chain, the one issue with supply chain, these units, at least the Gen 4 advanced units, use HALEU, high assay, low enriched uranium, which is uranium enriched to like the 15% and above range. Guess who is the only country in the world that produces HALEU at like a commercial level? Any guess? Russia. So we're not going to be buying that anytime soon. So we have to produce and build this industry within the United States. It's something that INL and others are obviously working on. How about hydrogen? Real quickly, the idea with hydrogen is you use renewable energy. It goes into electrolyzer. You separate hydrogen from oxygen. You burn the hydrogen in a plant. So let's go to hydrogen. Will this technology help us get that last 20%? Does it depend on weather? I mean, not really. You have to produce the hydrogen using renewables, but you can do that at night, anytime. You can store it. So at the end of the day, you treat it just like natural gas. How about affordability? I'm going to give that a big question mark too. This chart is just showing that hydrogen, in 2020 it was $6 a kilogram. It's probably still in the $5 to $5.50 a kilogram range. This chart shows how you can get to $2.6, doing a variety of different things. At Idaho Power, we need it to be at about $1 to $1.50 for it to be feasible. So again, we need another 70 to 80% reduction in price to make sure we can use this as a resource for our customers. What's the good news? Remember what happened with storage, solar, wind? I mean, 80% decreases. So never say never on these technologies. Supply chain just quickly. Hydrogen, you guys remember chemistry class? It's like number 1 on the chart. It's very small, it leaks, it's combustible. So moving this stuff around is not easy. Long duration storage, I'm going to skip because of time. Just to let you know that we are looking at long duration storage longer than 4 hours. There's one product in particular from Form Energy that's a 100-hour battery. Again, it's not cost effective now, but our hope is by 2035, 2036, it will be. Geothermal, I saw that mentioned. I've got to cruise fast. Sorry, because I know I'm running behind. Okay, so balance here. This is how Idaho Power is treating the clean energy push. It's with balance. We are not the monkey thinking everything's laid back, it is what it is, but we're also not the person with our hair on fire. We're trying to find that balance in the middle. And when I think about our journey, I think about the 2017 Virginia team. Do you guys remember this? Just because we just did the tournament. They were the first number 1 seed in the history of the tournament to lose to a number 16 seed in 2017. Not only did they lose, they got destroyed. 20-point loss. So fast forward to the next year. Same team pretty much. First round again. They're number 1 seed again. Guess what's happening at halftime? They're losing again. They end up coming back, winning that game, and then they win the next several games, all by very small margins, last-second shots. So I like to analogize the sports and everything we do in business. And I want to show you this video really quick. Final 4, 3 seconds left. Virginia's down by 2 points, and this is what happens.
Jerome slaps the basketball,
And
looking,
it felt
peering,
so
finds guy.
good. Catch it, and I turn.
Jerome slaps the basketball, looking, peering, finds guy.
I catch it, and I turn, and it felt so good.
We're gonna go this time.
Jerome
I saw the angle of the ball.
peering, finds guy in the left
I
corner,
was
4-3
thinking
in the
like,
win.
wow, we're gonna go home this time.
Jerome looking, peering, finds guy in the left corner, 4-3 in the win. Off the rim, no good. And the Tigers claw back the plate. Auburn fouled the shooter.
Because everyone was screaming and the whistle.
They called a foul. No one in the gym knew it was a foul but me and the guy who fouled me. Because everyone was screaming and the whistle was right on the baseline right next to us, so we were the only ones that heard it. And I'm a firm believer if he wouldn't have gotten in my space, I would have made it.
He'll shoot 3 free throws to try to send Virginia into the national championship game.
This is as big as it gets. And,
I was definitely nervous, but it was a good nervous, like seize the moment nervous, like this is as big as it gets. And, I look over in the stands, I try to find my fiance just to get a moment of comfort. And she's too short, can't see her. So I see my dad, and my dad like gives me a little nod, like you got this kind of eye contact. And I was like, all right, that's all the confidence I need right there.
It is 3 free throws for Kyle Guy.
And believe it or not,
Everyone asked me like, what were you thinking? Biggest moment of your career? And believe it or not, I told myself, I was like, look, there's 80,000 people here watching you. There's, millions more watching all around the world. Why not take advantage of this moment that you dreamed of since you were a kid?
He's a really confident guy, and he just had hit a big shot, so I knew he was feeling it. So I wasn't too worried at all.
1 free throw down, 2 to go.
I stood right behind him. I watched for free throws, and the second one looked like a tiny bit left. So as it was in the air, I was right next to Kihei. We were at half court watching it, and I was like, oh no, it might be left, might be left.
He's tied it. Wow, this is unbelievable.
My teammates would come over and be like, yeah, it's like, way to go, way to go.
I knocked down the first 2. They called timeout, try to ice me. So my teammates are coming over to me like, yeah, you got this, like, way to go, way to go. I'm like, dude, I don't want anything to do with
nights
you.
you spent at Lawrence Central, all those nights you spent
I know I still have enough free throw. I gotta make
at
this.
UVA after the UMBC loss.
All those nights you spent at Lawrence Central, all those nights you
Make it all
spent,
worth something was that moment.
at UVA after the UMBC loss, trying to forget it, trying to make it all worth something was that moment.
Pretty impressive, man. I didn't think I'd be able to do that. So how does that apply to us? Here's my view. We've shot our first free throw and we made it. We are one of the cleaner utilities in the United States right now. We're going to get that second one by the end of 2030 using wind solar storage. It's the last free throw that is the hard one for us. I'm just going to tell you it's a goal for us. I am concerned given the lack of our ability to permit transmission, to permit solar projects, wind projects, with growth that we're seeing, how we are going to get there without bringing fossil fuels into this. It's a concern of mine. My job is, and our job at Idaho Power is to operate this system. To get that last 20% is going to be tough. But it is a goal, and we're working hard to try to get there. So now is a good time for questions if you have them. By the way, 2045 is our goal time. I do believe in what Leonard's saying here. If you want to achieve great things, you got to have a plan, which we are working through our plan, our IRP, and not enough time. And that's how I feel right now. But we're working towards it. Okay.
Great. Thanks. Have a seat,
Okay.
Adam. And thank you.
Yep.
So this is a reminder about cards. So fill out your questions and raise your hand, and we will have our wonderful volunteers bring those questions up. We're going to start off with a fun one for you, Adam. Does your son Sam know that you're showing pictures of him in our slides?
No way. Yeah. No.
Okay. All
No,
right.
he wouldn't want that baby picture shown
Right.
anywhere.
It'd be fun running into him in town now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And one more fun one.
Yep.
So how did your first job prepare you for what you're doing now?
So my first job, I'm an engineer by trade, and then I went to law school, so I've done a little bit of both. My first job was building large projects for a construction company. So how it helped me is that's all we do in this space is build large projects. So it was actually part of that project where I got involved with our legal department. It was a company from Washington, D.C., and it also kind of prompted me to go to law school. And really, when you think about the energy business, it's two things. It's very technical in nature, and it has a lot of policy. Mm-hmm. And so having the background of an engineer and a lawyer, I think, is helped me a little bit in this space.
Okay, great. So now you and our earlier panel talked about permitting delays, and it's a real bottleneck for the larger topic of today. So you can answer this both ways or choose one part of this question. Specific to B2H, which you highlighted as experiencing those delays, what might you do differently looking back from today? Or, and we can spin this off into a second question. What do you think about one-stop permitting, which can streamline that?
So the way B2H works, you have to go through the NEPA process and get a federal permit. To do that, you have to look at, I think we looked at 60 different routes. And then you choose one route that is the best route for the community, for the landowners, for the environment. The problem is Oregon has a state process. It's called the Energy Facility Siting Council, where you take one route and you apply all these standards to it to determine if it meets all these standards. So we couldn't start really the state process until we had finished the federal process because we didn't know what that route was going to be. So having a state process, by the way, our state application was over 20,000 pages. So we went through the NEPA process. A lot of people in this room know about the NEPA process. We went through a bunch of lawsuits related to that. We were always successful in those lawsuits. Then we went through the state process, 20,000 pages. Then guess what happens? It goes to litigation there too, up to the Oregon Supreme Court. Now we are doing micro-siting, little tweaks on the line for the benefits of landowners. And guess what's happening because of that? We're getting sued, the permit's getting challenged again because of this micro-siting. It's going back to the Oregon Supreme Court. You cannot have this many entities reviewing this. And under the federal process, I bet we had 10 different agencies that we had to work with. So you do need it to be consolidated. You need it to be kind of one entity that's guiding this. You see that a little bit in Nevada. Nevada has been more successful because the state and the federal government have agreed that one entity is going to move forward with it. one entity would be great. I think that's probably a big answer for us.
Great. And you might have heard in our last session where we were talking about this possibility of repurposing old infrastructure for some of the renewable energy projects that are being discussed at scale. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I mean, we are doing that right now. We're repurposing our coal plant for natural gas. Our partners are actually looking at an SMR through TerraPower in Wyoming too, repurposing an old coal plant. So absolutely, if you can use old facilities where a lot of the studies have been performed and continue to be performed over the years and repurpose them, we would love that. But you need to get the transmission there is the problem.
Right.
That is actually a benefit, though, of using old facilities. Is like you look at these coal facilities, they do have transmission. They have existing transmission. So that's why you see a lot of folks siting there, is because the transmission's already built. You don't have to wait 15 years for it to get there.
Right. Great. Okay, how is Idaho Power?
It's a lot of questions.
It is. Yeah. Yes. So how is Idaho Power enabling small-scale power generation as a method to increase flexibility?
We're doing a couple different things. So we put batteries at our substations. So these are small facilities, in the megawatt or less range. It allows us to, instead of increasing the size of maybe a transformer at a substation, we're adding, small generation resources via batteries. I'm trying to think what else we're doing. I mean, we have our net metering program. You guys have probably heard about that. What happened there is the export rate changed from a retail credit rate of 10 cents to now whatever the market rate is. So when you see these high prices occurring in the summer, in the winter, now net metering customers will be able to take advantage of those prices when they're high. If they're lower, they'll have a lower price. So we've kind of worked through that structure. Some folks are happy about it. Some folks are not happy about it, but it's the market rates that are recovered there. We're not doing a lot of small things, honestly. And it's such big growth at 5.5% a year. That's hundreds of megawatts a year.
Right.
So we're building big projects to meet that.
Now, here's an opportunity for you to pull back geothermal into your discussion. So someone asked, what are the hurdles to further expansion of geothermal power generation?
It is generally exploration. So we know Idaho is a good place for geothermal, but finding that exact location can be difficult, and about 40% of all projects fail. So you can spend a lot of money trying to site geothermal, putting money into it, and then you may not even have a project. So when you look at the cost of geothermal, it tends to be in the 8 to 9 cents range, maybe 7 cents. It's still above kind of what we would like to pay. There are new technologies that are existing to hopefully make it more economical. They're using technologies from really the fossil fuel industry to improve geothermal. So we're hoping it'll get there. It showed up for the first time in our IRP in 2034. Jared? 2030. Oh, even earlier. 2030. So that's good news. It was 30 megawatt system. So we're going to continue to explore that. We would love geothermal to work out. It's just making the cost side of it pencil.
Sure. I know we're getting ready for a break shortly, so we're going to be winding down on the questions here shortly. But is Idaho Power experiencing or expecting any issues with increasing penetration for solar?
Yeah, what happens with solar, and you saw this with some of my slides, again, it doesn't necessarily hit the peak we need it to. And as you add more solar, the peak changes and it becomes less effective at hitting the peak over time. The peak moves out, and then solar is really not there. So as you add more solar, the ELCC, and you can Google this, whatever, the more solar you add, the ELCC goes down over time. So that's a problem for us. We right now would like to see a lot more wind in Idaho and maybe in Wyoming. The problem is we don't have the transmission built to bring that wind in. So that can be an issue as well too.
Okay. This will hopefully be an easy one, or at least a good opportunity. So what opportunities are there for students to work for Idaho Power?
For college students. Mm-hmm. We have a internship program. Every summer we hire about 7 college students, usually about half of them from Boise State. So if you keep your eyes out for those applications, we'd love to have you join. we've actually started to increase it over the years. It's a really good program. They spend the summer rotating through different groups within our company. They get to go do a bunch of site visits, see our facilities, and we've been doing it for decades now. So please apply.
Okay, great. So as we go into break, let me first and foremost thank Adam for wonderful insights on this broader theme that we're all wrestling with, and for so many good particular perspectives about Idaho Power. So thank you so much.
Great.
All right.
Thanks. Thank you.